At Merle Electronic, we're about what I describe as the forgotten middle. Field devices down here, thinking devices up here, but they have to be connected. And for the most part, they're not. We're not connected like we think we are. And so we have a limited amount of data. It's not unheard of to walk into a plant. They're using equipment that's 35 years old. The physical world is the biggest gap in artificial intelligence deployment, in my opinion, right now. When things go wrong, we'll see it. And hopefully we'll have prevented it and it never happens. We don't know what we don't know. Once we have access to the data, then we can find stuff we didn't even know existed. That it's going to find things and be that next frontier of putting you differentiably above your competitor because you're discovering stuff and they haven't.
Welcome to Industry Next, where today's leaders and innovators shape what's next for industry.
Well, hello and welcome to Industry Next. I'm Danny Gonzalez, and we're here to chat with the leaders and innovators defining the future of the industry. And so today we have a very special guest. I'm excited to be talking with Craig Henry. We go back a little bit. Craig Henry is the account director for Amazon at Merle Electronic. He's a radical t-shirt enthusiast and one of Waffle House's VIP customers, as we come to understand it. Craig, thank you so much for joining me on Industry Next.
I'm really glad to be here. And now I'm second guessing my shirt choice. I'm going kind of corporate here. Was going to do the Waffle House t-shirt, but
that's fine.
Then I don't know. There could be a problem with copyright, and there'd be a whole thing.
It gets messed up with the royalties sometimes. So
But thank you. Yes, that's my branding for sure.
All right. Well, I think there's a little note though. So all of our audience might not be familiar with Waffle House. So for those who aren't familiar with it, just think of IHOP, but with more grease, more Southern hospitality, and more flavor. So there you have it. There's our commercial for that. This episode is brought to you by not Waffle House, but now I want to go there.
Love it.
I'm excited about it. But Craig, thank you so much for joining me. We've had previous conversations before at the studio on the executive series that we've had here, and we've done interviews at various trade shows. I think at Modex and ProMat throughout the last several years. So excited to have you back on the show. So a little bit different format than what we have done in the past. I'm going to start off with, I have a couple little icebreaker questions that I would love to ask so our audience can get to know you a little bit more, a little bit better for all of us.
Okay.
So the first question I've got for you is, if you had to teach a class on anything that was outside of work and your job, what would that be and why?
I know this sounds super corporate, and I wanted to have something fun like hang gliding or something, but to be honest, I think there is a huge lack of leadership in all walks of life, not even just business. And I'm, over the course of these zillions of years that I've been working, I found there's a lack there, and there are certain components of leadership that are different than management. And I think that would be a great topic to bring up. What is a leader? Because it's not always someone with the most degrees or necessarily someone with the most experience per se. Leadership has some cool, I think some truths that need to come out, because I see there's a real scarcity of great leadership in particularly in business.
I love that. I'm going to ask a follow-up question. Okay. I'm just curious because it's super easy, right? How would you define leadership?
Well, managing comes from the word mano, which means hand. Okay, so you're just moving things, managing things. That's one thing, and that's a very important part of any kind of organization of people. Leadership is, I have a vision for the future. I am credible enough for you to want to follow me on your own, not because I'm demanding it, not because I'm a boss. And the leader is going to develop the most important ingredient, which is trust. And trust is something Stephen Covey and his son talked about this. It's such a key part of the speed of business. And without trust, it's very hard for a team to really excel. So I think that's absolutely key. And there's more to leadership, but those are the keys.
No, absolutely love it. A little plug for, doesn't Stephen Covey have a great book called Speed of Trust?
That's it. That's what I'm
and it's it's all around that,
Mhm,
and he breaks down trust into these different areas,
mhm,
right? So it's not, I think a lot of times we think about trust as maybe ethical or in ethics and moral, which is a component of it,
sure.
certainly, but it gets into reliability, it gets into competence, it gets into, these different areas that, you may be very ethical, you may be very reliable, you may be very competent, but maybe there's an area that you're a little like weaker in, and that can kind of break that trust factor piece, right? So maybe the reliability piece, and it could be like, hey, I don't know, stuff isn't going to get done, but I'm super competent and super ethical. Like, okay, well, that's a little bit of that break.
Mhm.
And so, anyways, I think it's a fascinating
It
topic.
really is.
We should probably do another episode on that. So,
I recommend it.
um,
It's such an important human need is to follow people who are credible and develop that trust. And I think Stephen Covey did a great job of it in The Speed of Trust. I recommend that book. And in fact, I cite it in my book because it's so important. Trust is a very key
mm,
point, a key component of developing any kind of team and absolutely core to any relationship you have. So,
love it. No, that's awesome. Well, a little foreshadowing. I
yeah,
think we might be getting into that a little
do it.
bit, little bit down the road. So, all right. So I've got a second. I got
Okay.
to follow up. Really, my third question at this point, I guess. But getting to know Craig a little bit more.
Uh,
Fun question. I love asking this. What is a lesson that you learned the hard way, but you're really glad that you had that happen? And it doesn't have to be
yeah.
work related. It could be,
Well,
there's got to be one or two in there.
it's and I think it is work related. It comes to mind when I was a young engineer. First of all, I went through school to become an engineer, and I thought at the end of that training I'd know like a whole lot about everything. And at the end of my 4.5 years, because it took me a little longer, um, I realized
So
even more how little I understood. um, so as I have moved in my career and gotten a little bit of experience under my belt, I've come to understand it is much better to be really great at a few things than to be an inch deep and a mile wide. The old
mm,
jack of all trades
master of none.
is
Yeah.
we have to cut free from stuff and say that's not my thing and that's not my thing, but this is my thing. And this is what I tell young people and my kids: get great at something. Go for the top 5% and then get to the top 5% of that 5%, whatever you're going to do. Whether you're a massage therapist, whether you're a brain surgeon, whether you are an auto detailer, it doesn't matter. Be so good that you're playing a different game. And I think that makes people understand how they can be so valuable in this world and really differentiate themselves. And it also can be really self actualizing when you say, "Hey, I really like this field or whatever it is." So you're following your bliss anyway, but just do the work and get great at something, and you'll find that it's just all the fun is there. That's what I tell my kids. Just when you're great at something, people are coming to you. You're not chasing
Yeah.
anything, and you'll have fun doing it, and whatever it is. So anyway, long answer,
That's awesome.
but I think
I
that's
love it.
something I would really, yeah, I've learned the hard way.
Well, that's all that great answer. It sounds like another book that I've heard of, from good to great,
Oh yeah.
and many others, right? But on that note, okay, so Craig, what are you great at? You are, you're the global account director for Amazon at Merle Electronic.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? A, who is Merle Electronic? What do you guys do, and what are you doing there in your greatness?
What do I do there? People are asking me all the time, "What are you doing here?" No, they don't.
What is it that you say that you
What does you
actually
say
do
that you
here?
actually do here? Movie reference. So,
The two Bobs.
the thing that, I mean, this is very transparent, you guys. I'm an okay engineer, and I have a patent, and I've developed stuff and, created some products and stuff, but I'm not a great engineer, okay? That's not where my mojo really lies. And what I've come to find out about myself is, and I do this at Merle Electronic, and this is when they hired me, I was very clear about this. I said, what I'm going to do is work with this one single gigantic customer called Amazon, and I am going to make the relationships and see my way through to help them with these gigantic billion-dollar projects. And I'm going to do whatever that needs and talk to whomever I need to talk to understand the decision-making wheel and who's who in the zoo, but really get to know folks. And I'm finding it's a wonderful. The Amazonians are such an incredible tribe, if I can use that. Their mantras and all the objectives that Amazon works under is fascinating. And I love meeting new people, and which is very unlike most engineers. The pure engineer,
That-
leave me alone.
Good point.
I'll be done in a few months. I'll show you when I'm finished. But I'm the opposite, which is I want to hang out and understand how these folks and wonderful people are compensated. Even what is their objectives? How can I help you meet your objectives? What kind of tools can we use? And I'm going to use technology to do that. And at Merle Electronic, we're about what I describe as the forgotten middle. Field devices down here, thinking devices up here, but they have to be connected. And for the most part, they're not right now. That's where we are. And that's a big gap in Industry 5.0 and Industry 4.0 as well, is that we're not connected like we think we are. And so we have a limited amount of data. So that's the story I'm putting together.
That makes sense. So, I mean, if I were to kind of boil that down, essentially, you've got like cloud computing, and we've got, stuff on the cloud, but then we've got hardware in a plant or a warehouse,
Shop floor.
and it's essentially, making these tools, this machinery, this equipment smart, and being able to connect to the cloud, and then being able to get insights and do a bunch of things with that. Is that sort of a, kindergarten level understanding?
Yes, that's it. And one thing I'd like to add to that analogy is, well, it's not an analogy, of that description, is that the field devices are getting smarter and smarter. And as they get AI on board, they're communicating not as a signal, but now as a communication network that's self-checking. It's a swarm kind of intelligence at the field device level. So kudos to all the sensor manufacturers and camera manufacturers and all the folks doing that shop floor stuff or on vehicle stuff. Then, it's a technical word, by the way, stuff. That's going to inform in a better way how the edge and the cloud are going to understand the physical world, because the physical world is the biggest gap in artificial intelligence deployment, in my opinion, right now. Because the physical world is not just how a robot tries to play basketball, but how we understand down to every pin and every sensor what's really happening. And when things go wrong, we'll see it. And hopefully we'll have prevented it and it never happens. But it's not this after the fact reactionary stuff. And that's all about moving this unplanned downtime, which is the whoops, to the planned downtime, where we're oiling this and we're fixing that and we're adjusting this on our planned downtime, so we're not affecting throughput and the profitability of the firm.
Absolutely. Makes sense. We're moving from reactive to proactive.
Exactly. Right. Of course, you said it
That
way
makes
better than I
sense.
did, for sure.
No, no, this is great.
You did.
It's super helpful to unpack that. I think a lot of times that, in the industry, we'll talk about these different concepts like at like super high level. And then it's like, yeah, I think there's a lot of head nods, like absolutely 100%. And then it's kind of like, I don't know what you just said. Like what is going on?
Good. I felt good from it, but what?
It's funny. It's the same thing, when we would do a lot of stuff in marketing and have all these, big, we're going to talk about the, here, we're going to connect into our CRM, and we've got our a map, marketing automation platform. And we're going to make sure that we have these analytics, that we have the right, we have all the right KPIs, and we got to look at our MQLs and what's an MQL versus net. And people are like, yes, absolutely. This is super important. And inside they're like, I have no idea what the heck that is, but I'm not going to admit that I have no idea what that is. So I think same, especially in an even more technical environment. So I like unpacking it because I'm not an engineer. This isn't my thing. I just like, we're furthering their industry through storytelling and talking to people who are great at what they do, like Craig, like the great
I'm
Craig
not, and I
Henry.
wasn't trying to
So,
say that and say I'm great at what I do. That's not what I'm trying to say.
well, that's
I'm
the title of this
adequate at what I
episode.
do.
I'm just playing
Oh,
with you.
that's cool. You can play with me. That's cool. But one of my mentors, and I was very fortunate to have this mentor early in my career. His name's John Cabas, and he worked at Deloitte. Went to Rice University. He's 6'8". He's the biggest
Oh wow,
human I've ever been friends with. It's just odd. Anyway,
that's yeah.
and it's not odd. It's captivating. And anyway, he's an engineer, and he taught me something. He said, "Craig, stop talking." He said, "You're making this complicated again." I said, "What do you mean?" And I felt like complicated was good because I'm an engineer and I'm on a detailed level. He says, "No." He says, "If you cannot explain it by drawing it on a napkin and in about 30 seconds, you don't understand it, whatever it is."
Hmm.
And that really
Yeah.
stuck with me because I thought, yeah, I'm not going to baffle anybody with BS. That's not going to work. And that wasn't really what I was trying to do. But sometimes we do hide behind acronyms, the way things are said, phrases. But let's get right down to it. What are we talking about? And it doesn't have to be complicated. I'm a big fan of just simply tell me what we're doing. And
Absolutely.
if we can simply do that and explain it to a fifth grader, then we understand it. And that's how I approach it.
Absolutely.
Don't, and then there's a lot of technical things. Not to say there isn't
Sure. Oh,
a
it's
bit and
extremely
byte level
technical,
that has
but
to be
yeah.
understood and understood well. But that's a big one for me. Just saying.
No, it totally makes sense. So, well, last year wasn't that long ago, right?
Mhm.
A couple months ago, several months ago, you released a book
Mhm.
called Super Connected: The Future of the Industrial Nervous
Mhm.
System. What's all that about?
What's all that about? This came selfishly because as I found myself talking about process with Amazon and their vendors, their tier ones, their integrators, and I'm thinking, what is my real value prop? And I think anybody who is in any kind of customer forward kind of role should have something in their head if they're on the elevator for 15 seconds with the owner of whatever company they're calling on. And that's
100%.
daunting. And I thought about that for months.
Hmm.
And finally, I got down to what I had alluded to a little earlier in this interview was that the proposition is not that we sell connectivity and making things like Lego and we have an IO device that does this and a network switch that does that. It's this forgotten middle, and that there is a gigantic return on investment, not necessarily in software or AI per se, but in let's go ahead and get connected so that we don't have this wonderful, intelligent AI based or AI accented knowledge base that's like a big brain floating in space that's not connected to the real world. And so I've used this analogy that's been used before. It's not unique of the human body and that there's a nervous system there and you have to have the brain connected so that it knows what the hands and the feet and everything is doing in real time. And to do that, get things connected, get them off signals, move away from analog, get to digital, go from digital, make sure you're on networks that are safe and deterministic. And I also talk about standards that you got to have standards that say we're going to be using these protocols that are open
Hmm.
and not closed off, not these black boxes that so many vendors feel is a good idea. It's not a good idea to hold your customer for ransom and say, no, you only have to buy our stuff now because you've got this, and therefore none of these
Yeah.
other things will work because those are my competitors. No, that's a very closed-minded, limiting belief set. So those are a few things. Now, the book itself
Yeah.
talks a lot about AI because of its role in moving forward, and we can jump into that if you'd like.
Yeah.
But it's because we're in the AI world that this is becoming more and more acute. This lack of a middle ground and connectivity to the world, the nervous system of any system.
And why do you think that is right now?
I just think it's the age of our infrastructure. This it's not unheard of to walk into a plant. They're using equipment that's 35 years old. And it's
Right.
fine,
Yep.
but there's a
Yep.
lot of analog there, and someone doesn't have any access to a program that's running. And It reminds me of I was at a tire plant one time. It was earlier in my career, but I went to this tire plant and the guy opened up a cabinet and I was doing motion control equipment at the time, and he opens up this cabinet and there's the PLC and all the different disconnects and terminal blocks. But then on the door there were all these ice cube relays and wires and stuff. And I said, "What is going on here?" And they said, "Well, we don't have the program to change what it does. We've just been adding functionality on the door
Mm.
such that click, 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 it does a new kind of logic function." Old school, or like 70s old school ice cube relay stuff. And I
Mm.
said, "Well, why are you doing it that way?" And they said, "Well, we got this stuff from another plant and they moved it in here and we didn't have anything
Yeah.
idea about it. And they said this was going to be temporary, like a few months." I said, "How long ago was that?" 5 years. So
That was a few months.
this
I
stuff
mean, yeah,
happens. And so the
sure.
point is
Yeah.
that so much of our infrastructure is older. It has signals. We're running an analog, you know, 4 to 20 milliamp signal over here, and this is on device
Yeah.
net, and this is on a CAN bus, and everything is there, and it's working, and it's expensive to change it all out. So we
Yeah.
just have to deal
Yeah.
with what we have instead
Yeah.
of
Exactly.
everything being on EtherCAT and Ethernet IP and on safety networks and stuff that could be seen from the edge and ultimately the cloud from a manager in another state. That's what we want, but we just have a long
To
way to
get
go.
there. Yeah. It's interesting. Obviously these are, especially with these, brownfield sites, like it's not something you can snap fingers and boom,
Mhm.
you know, we're done, right? Yeah, I was looking at there was a LinkedIn post or something
Mm,
about I think it was like maybe the 737,
mm,
Boeing 737s. Some are legacy airplane, might have been the 747, but
mm.
they were still using floppy disks for some of
Stop
this is some aging. I mean, can you imagine that? Um, and
it. Yikes.
and there are some upgrades and things that you can do with that, but there was like, and there people were asking like, is this legit? Like seriously? And some pilots and engineers were popping up saying, yeah, actually, in this one, and that, yeah. And it reminds me too of I remember talking to a guy, this is years ago, who was had worked with NASA and on the space shuttle,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they said you would be shocked as to like how old the technology actually is on the space shuttle. Now the space shuttle's been retired for some time.
Mhm.
um, and you said, but one of the reasons, well, obviously it's expensive and it's a big overhaul to do all this stuff. So, but it can be a little bit simpler to diagnose when something goes wrong, on how to solve something. So it's semi intentional, but you get into these complex systems and it's like if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. And I think a lot of times
Mhm.
there's a you know it's almost like IT sales, right? You're trying to sell something. You're trying to sell a future problem that doesn't necessarily exist.
Mhm.
So it's like you kind of don't know what's there. So we make this huge upgrade in equipment,
Mhm.
and unless if there's like a specific use case saying, "Hey, here's the ROI. This is going to unlock all of this data. These assets. We think that we're going to be able to increase output by 20%," and you can run the numbers and, oh, okay, well, they actually, I think a lot of times it's kind of hard. So you're maybe tackling one process at a time and say, well, let's try to fix this and make this a little bit better. And then we kind of go on an incremental level. Is that maybe a fair assumption or
Yes.
synopsis?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent way to look at it. It's the bottleneck analysis. It's really, to me, I'm a mechanical engineer by training, but industrial engineering tells us look for the bottleneck, which is the thing that restricts the entire line from input to output. What is that restrictive thing that sets the rate? It's the fastest you can make a widget. And then when you find that and you open that up, and now it's not the bottleneck, something else is, and you just keep doing that. That's
Yeah.
a general way of looking at what you just described, which is let's get in and simplify what our task is, not just make the world a better place, but let's fix that. Of course, you can do it in priority order. What are the top three failure
Of
modes
course.
here?
Yeah.
And let's go after the first one, the second one, and it'll be a continuing process. It will absolutely get you more efficient, but there's more to it than this. There's an expression, my father who worked for IBM, and he helped, with point of sale systems and was able to land a little account called Walmart. Good for him,
Oh
back in the
yeah, yeah.
'90s.
I think I've heard of
Yeah,
them.
you've heard of
Yeah.
them. They're decent sized firm. He says that he talks about AI with me, and we just had an hour-long conversation on Monday this week, but he says, "We don't know what we don't know." And he
Mhm.
says, "AI reminds me of a guy who worked at, I think it was Interstate Foods or something, it was a grocery chain, and he had this old cash register system, and he would go home and on the weekends, he would go through the register tapes, and it would have all the transactions, hundreds and hundreds of them, maybe more, and he would be able to recognize a four-digit number was beans or taco shells or Coke, something, and he would look at it and he said, "Well, I did this promotion on these items and they sold this much more." And he would look for patterns, et cetera. But he wasn't looking for anything specific. He was just combing over
Yeah.
this very primitive data. And my dad was telling me this. He said, once we have access to the data, then we can find stuff we didn't even know existed, which goes
Mhm.
beyond the analysis we
Yep.
just talked about. So that we don't know what we don't know, it reminds me of the API mandate that Bezos did back in, I think it was 2014, may have been 2016. He said, no, it was even earlier than that. Anyway, a while back, he said, I want access to everything. Everything must be open. I
Mhm.
want an API into everything. And I don't, the assumption is he doesn't know what he's going to do with the data, but he wants all the data because
Yeah.
Amazon is a data company.
Yeah.
They do
Exactly.
fulfillment, they have AWS, they now have Leo, formerly Project Kuiper. They have Lab 126 making the Echo devices, and on it goes. But they are a data company, and it's that key piece that I think is the most exciting for me about AI moving forward, is that it's going to find things and be that next frontier of putting you differentiably above your competitor because you're
Yeah.
discovering stuff and you've invested and they haven't, and that's the new
100%.
way we're gonna squeeze some more efficiency. I
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's a very exciting time right now as it relates to that. I want to kind of pivot into that
Okay,
conversation on of AI right now because it's kind of hot. Um,
could be.
but before I do that, real quick, I kind of want to I would just love to know like what can readers expect? If you get your book, I believe it is available on this Brazilian company or something, Amazon, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, now, and you can get it there. What's the expectation from a reader? I take this. What's that message? What am I going to get out of this that's going to help me? Do X, Y, Z.
Well, and I can base my answer on some of the, reviews I've gotten from folks I respect because I know what I think, but what they think is more important. It's a
Perfect. Yeah.
relatively quick read. It's available on Kindle and as a paperback because people just don't buy hardback anymore, and it's expensive.
It's
What they're
true.
gonna get is it goes pretty technical at times, so you can jump over the spots if you don't wanna get so technical, but we're gonna cover this idea of this new frontier, and the goal of the book is to say, "Look, I'm gonna show you a path and some details around a path to a very high return on investment in the AI age." And it may not be as sexy as you want it to be because it's about some pretty rudimentary truths. It's going to be about connection to the real world and the physical connection, and then it covers other pieces like how you can structure your corporate team so that it's cross functional and that we're going to be addressing this. It's not just one department's
Mm,
issue. AI is coming into so many facets of business, which makes it so unique, and that these are unique times that we live in. It's affecting so many pieces so quickly, so you're going to get insight into that. We're going to talk about a little bit about trust and about how trust is a key part of moving forward in a cyber secure way. So I mentioned
mhm.
about cybersecurity as a key component of connectivity. It's got to be there. It's not widely known that the profits from hacking now exceed the profits from illegal drugs in the world. So that was wow moment
Didn't
for
know
me
that,
when I found
but
that
that
out. The revenues,
makes sense.
good gosh, yeah, it's big. So I bounce around around the topic, but get you equipped. So when you read the book, it's going to have some technical, but it's not a textbook, and it's not. It's designed for managers, for up and coming managers, and all the way up through the C-suite to understand an approach. Not the only
Yeah,
approach, but an approach
but an approach, yeah.
to getting.
No, I love it. I love the leadership piece, and you were talking. We were talking about
Mm,
that
mm,
earlier, and trust. I think when we're talking about digital transformation,
mm.
there is a lot of there's a lot of challenges, obviously, with it, and I think that there was another podcast episode that we did with Jim Mayer. This was on the Practitioners Unplugged. This was several months ago. Um, Actually, it might even be almost a year ago now at this point. But one of the things that he talked about, and we did that at Modex, or not Mode, we were at Automate, and he said one of the challenges right now, you got all these owners, these managers that are out here on the floor right now, looking at new technology, looking at new equipment, machinery, and saying, "Oh, this is perfect. Let's do this, and we're going to buy this, and this." And they're not taking into account actually talking to those who are going to be interacting and working with it, not talking to those frontline workers or those people. And so it's almost like we're taking these solutions and saying, this is perfect. This is exactly what you need versus, bringing them into that conversation. I think that's where trust can be created and built, saying, hey, we want to empower you. Like, how can you make like your life better, your job better, more output? Like, what issues are you seeing?
Yeah.
And, we thought it was this piece of equipment or this solution, but actually really it should be this over here. And I'm glad we talked to, John on the line, or Jane, or whoever that is, and bringing them into the conversation. It's been interesting. We're doing a couple change management projects right now
Okay.
with a couple different manufacturers on stuff like that, and it's interesting. It's very interesting hearing directly from frontline workers about like how much of an impact that's making, and there's more buy-in, there's more engagement and excitement. um, Turnover is dropping
Oh,
radically
good.
in these organizations because they're saying, hey, I'm being heard, like I'm valued, I'm part of this team, and what I'm saying actually is helping us to get towards our goals, versus I'm being mandated do this new process, and you're like, well, why? This is stupid, the other one was better. You're having a hand in that.
Mhm.
And I think that's to your point about trust. I think that's a real in leadership. I think that's a really, really key component to that. So sounds like you got a great book that that could apply to a lot of different people who are sort of in the same boat.
Well, there is a big gap. I just posted this on LinkedIn a few days back, and I had my very prolific graphic arts guy have me dancing with a robot. Okay, so I wanted it to look kind of Ginger Rogers, Fred Astaire looking. And my question online was, is this a beautiful collaboration, us with AI, or is it dancing with the devil? And I got a lot of great comments. It was very interesting. But what I quoted there was management and executives are 60 some percent positive about AI and what it can do for them. And only 31% of like frontline workers, the rank and file staff are excited about it. It's more negative. They're like, what is it doing? What is it going to take from us? What is this
Mhm.
weird voodoo going on in the background
Yeah,
that I don't understand? And I'll tell you, most people don't understand what AI is
yeah,
about. And and the thing is, it's not just one answer. It's it's a whole way of thinking. And agentic AI, there's some great books out there. AI intelligence is great. Agentic AI is a great book. Uh, they're helping me to understand all the breadth and depth of what it can do. But by and
yeah.
large, I think most people are a little bit, what are we talking about here? Why did a company just fire 10,000 people and say that it's because of AI? Is my job next? And that kind of thing is real. And I think that's the biggest problem we're dealing with right now perceptually is, and I heard this in a wonderful uh, panel. A guy said hyper novelty. The hyper
Mm.
novelty, meaning that AI is happening so quickly and changing so quickly, it's bridging a gap or it's pulling a gap that we just don't have time to get up the learning curve. Like the mountain continues to get
Yeah,
higher as we're trying to get up it because of its novelty. It's the way it affects how we do things.
absolutely. Well, I mean, so a lot to unpack there. Obviously, this is a good transition into this the AI conversation. It's like obviously it's connected to the book. It's connected to the future of where things are going. You mentioned about all these firings and stuff that was happening that people have mentioned about AI. Let me ask you this: Do you really think do you really think that that is what is going on? That oh, these from an enterprise level, people are saying, hey, we've got all these processes figured out. We're going to leverage AI, and now your job is gone. Or do you think it's more of a because hearing a lot of these stories end of Q4, typically you get towards year end, people are trying to shape up the bottom line. We got to make sure we got to look at our EPS and if you're publicly traded versus private equity, a lot of different play there. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm curious. Do you really think that's what it is, or
No.
do you think it's shoring up the bottom
No,
line?
I think we have just because two things or three things happen coincidentally doesn't mean that there's a causal relationship. I believe
Right.
that we are in a labor crisis. Take AI out of the equation. We're in a labor
Yeah.
crisis in fulfillment and logistics alone in the United States, 500,000 short of human beings that can do the jobs. So having to automate that and use intelligent systems to do that is absolutely necessary. There's also a
Yeah.
cultural change going on over the last 20 years. There aren't a lot of people that want to work in a warehouse, and that's okay.
Right.
Automation is
Yep.
supposed to be there for the dull, dirty, and dangerous. So you get
Hmm.
out of that, and do something else. The other thing that's coincident with this has nothing to do with AI is that opportunity is what we're missing. And there are young people going into school, getting degrees, and coming out and going, "Oh, there's no job for me, and I'm going to need to get a job in another field because opportunity is missing." That's my biggest concern is as we move forward, continue to have opportunity for everybody. Not everyone's going to be an engineer. Not everyone's going
Right.
to
Right.
be able to write well and do um, English speaking very well. And now that AI is here, it's going to take that over, and that gets into something called skills fade, which I talk about in the book. That if the machine seems to be really smart, and there it is working, does it really need me here as a human? And the fact is,
Mm.
yes, it needs you, and it needs you to work at a higher level. You're managing that tool,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's a tool. Technology, by the way, is just some physical truth, some science that's been turned into a tool for use in business or
Yeah.
whatever. Technology means tool, and AI is just another tool. It's
Yeah.
not a presence, it's not sentient. That gets into whole worldview stuff, but it's
It's a
not a human being.
not Terminator.
It's
Yeah.
not that it's a device. It's a
Yeah.
machine, and we need to know how to use it. But to answer your question though, no, I don't see AI or automation causing or even making worse these other issues, which are worse and getting worse,
Yeah.
unfortunately, on their own.
Yeah. No, I think, yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I agree with you. I kind of feel that maybe that was a clickbaity headline or something, that was
Could
going
be.
on, but it's been interesting, you know, um, I mean, AI is it's the wild, wild west. There's a lot of things that are going on. There's amazing things that it can do. But there's also, I feel like there's a lot of limitations with it, right? Like it can maybe get you sometimes, depending on the task in
Mm,
which you want to do,
mhm,
like 80% there
mhm,
or not. Personally, and it depends on what you're using for AI and different things. But
sure,
one thing that I'm curious about is the reliability of it.
mhm,
Um, you know, because you hear a lot about hallucinations, right? So, and just a fancy word for it starts making stuff up, you know.
mhm,
And it depends on what you're using. Like I'll take Chat GPT for
sure.
example, firsthand experience.
Okay.
I noticed, you know, um, with the different models and stuff, like you get some wildly like it may start making things up or being flat out like wrong. I had two cases over the summer, and it really was a little concerning where I was having it analyze some documents.
Mhm.
It was some government documents, and I was trying to have them interpreted. Like what exactly, they had like codes and stuff on here. What does this mean? Can you put this into plain English for me? And it was like, oh yeah, this and this and this and this and this. So I was like, okay. And then I said, give me the source on where you got this from.
Mhm.
And I went and checked it, and it was wrong. Like, it cited the correct source from another government website. But if you actually read through that and it said, hey, this code 4 means this, 5 means this, I'm like, that's not what you put in here.
Mhm.
And that was a real like, ooh. Um, I've had that happen a couple other times. Again, I think it's dependent upon the model and different things like that. So my question to you is that, do you think, related just in those specific, maybe the LLMs, that to, an OpenAI ChatGPT model? Is that something that we might be seeing, across other models? And
Mhm.
I mean, ultimately where I'm getting at is, have we arrived to where we can have really critical processes? Let's say uploading, a big challenge of product manuals,
Mhm.
right? From a maintenance
Mhm.
standpoint, I've got all these PMs for this equipment,
Mhm.
and I'm a maintenance tech or whatever, and we need to do some stuff. I need to do a startup procedure or what have you. Um, is the confidence level high enough to where we feel like that's not going to get all jacked up? Is essentially what I'm trying to say in a very,
I
informal way.
see that's I pause because the tool has been documented to give wrong answers at times. Sometimes it's the fault of the prompt.
Sure.
I can
Yeah.
be lazy and put in a one sentence prompt and hope for the best. I really should, for
Yeah.
that, if I'm honest, need to put 2 paragraphs in. I am in this role. I am looking for this, and this is my objective. I want this data from reliable sources. Please cite your sources, and the sources are reliable because of this. I need these answers in this format. And if there is any confusion or contradiction with the data you look at, please present it to me before you give your final answer. I mean, stuff like that. We do need to
Yeah.
prompt better than that. But to answer your question, if it's not the prompt and it's just the system, it's getting better every day, but we're still dealing with a system that was designed to just sound like a person, to
Hmm.
communicate like
Hmm.
a person. Now, that's a giant breakthrough, and the large language model does that, but it doesn't always understand. In fact, that's a whole other topic too. Does it really understand anything? It's giving you
Sure.
information in a format that you've asked for, but the example I just read about was, and we should try this again, see if they fixed it, but someone put it in a prompt and says, tell me about the logistics conference that happened on November 13th in Antarctica. It gives an answer. There was obviously no kind of conference in Antarctica. And it will even double down, come back and say, tell me who spoke and what they talked about at that conference.
Yeah.
And it gives you a false answer because it's saying there's an assumption. Well, there must have been one. And these are the kinds of people that would go to that. And these are the kinds of things that
Right.
they've said online. And it gives you, again, another false one, never indicating to you, I'm not really sure that that really happened. Are you give
Yeah.
me more detail like a human would do? So it's like that kid you maybe knew in junior high school who wanted to impress everybody about his knowledge and always
Like,
inserted
oh
what he
yeah,
thought about it,
100%. Yeah.
but doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so it can act like that, but it's getting better and better and better. It's important to understand which model you're using, because if you're talking about ChatGPT, you're talking
Sure.
about a data set that's months old. If you're using Grok,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's current. It will search the web today, right now. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of pieces. Get better at that. And the other thing I'd like to insert is that if you're talking about real critical stuff, put it in your own repository, have the large language model, not go out to the world at large looking, from
Right.
pillar to post. Go to your data set. Here are all the manuals. Now
Yeah.
answer these questions about these products, and you're gonna be assured it's gonna have the data right there. It's just gonna go through it and get you the answer quickly. And I'm seeing that there's that model, and then the
Yeah.
next best
More
one,
closed,
yeah,
right?
closed
Yeah.
system, and then the other one is having multiple agents that are self-checking, and then have an overarching model says, "I'm looking at the output of these other agents, and I question this, this, and this." Gets pushed up to the human being. It's a big piece of what I'm saying in the book. This is Industry 5.0, human in command. It pushes up, "This is what I've got for you. These things don't make sense. Here are your options. Make a decision or tell me to go look for some more stuff." There has to be a lot more to it than just two-sentence
Yeah.
prompt, hope for the best.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. All right, so dumb question, like, let's talk about a closed system. Does it work like having an enterprise level, like open AI account where you're saying in that let's say take that use case of the product manuals,
Mhm.
where you basically say, hey, we're going to dump all the PMs in here, and we simply want to make a search chat or
Yeah.
something, and you just put parameters around it saying just use this, don't go out there, um, from a reliability
Mhm.
standpoint,
Mhm.
that
Oh,
you're
I'm very
feeling
confident in
confident
that.
that
In fact,
that's
we've a number of companies that I know about are using AI to do a complete search of all their database. It can also create a knowledge base in real time as people ask questions. It saves their answers and says, someone says, "I need a device that operates on 24 volts and it does this and it has these specs." It can go and look at all the manuals and all the data sheets and say, "Here are the 8 answers to your question," and be great at that as
mm,
long as it
that's
understands
amazing.
what the prompt is. And I
Yeah.
think that's a great use case right now. And it's getting 24/7 kind of technical help to folks as they're in the field trying to get stuff working again or install something. I think that's a great use
Yeah.
case with a very high reliability.
Absolutely. I mean, what I think is interesting is that, sure, maybe novice. I'm certainly lesser than a novice, but the tools that are out there are just mind blowing about what like with what you can do without having low code, no code experience.
Mhm.
The whole like what's the term vibe coding right now?
Oh, yeah, I haven't heard the
You
vibe
know,
code. What
what
does that mean?
vibe coding. So it's basically it's like you don't know code.
Uh-huh.
I don't know JavaScript. I don't know whatever, and I'm able to create apps and different things.
Yeah.
Vibe. So what would fall into that category are tools we were talking about before the call, like a Replit
Mhm,
or a Bubble.
mhm,
There was another one. Oh, I'm blanking on the name. But essentially, these are tools that you can create apps or designs that essentially kind of have agents built inside of them. And
mhm.
I mean, you could in minutes, you could deploy an app to the App Store. Now, whether it's go through approvals and
Yeah.
stuff like that, but web apps. I mean, we have personally, I've been messing around with this. Our team has been doing this, and it blows my mind at how quickly we can scale. So we could prototype something,
Yeah.
and I think this is like huge, particularly for manufacturers, like to be able to like even just like tinker with things and be able to or logistics create a proof of concept very fast, very quickly. Dare I even say an MVP, depending on, I think I have questions about, the how you might be able to scale some of these systems. And I'm assuming there's going to be bugs and all kinds of stuff. But, if you've got a certain process that's, certainly at a 1 or 2 person user level,
Mhm.
it's amazing what you're able to
It
do
is.
with the speed.
It's the companies of the future, especially ones that are working with a product that is an information product, are going to be astonishingly efficient. The what is his name? Durov, who is the sole owner of Telegram, he started out doing a Facebook kind of thing in Russia, and then they kicked him out because he wouldn't let the Russian government spy on everybody. Anyway, he's found his home in Dubai, I believe, and his company does $1.4 billion and has 60 employees.
Mm, crazy.
And so I think about
That's nuts.
when you do the dollar per employee thing, it's insane. There's an
Yeah.
efficiency that comes with this that allows you to have maybe you don't need an employee to do something because it's a boring, repetitive task,
Yeah.
and you can get this
Yeah.
agent to go do it, and it will do it all the time just as you want it to, and it will do very well in a very specific role like that. It's high confidence. I see this being an excellent time for us to be efficient, um, but I do encourage everybody to learn more. Just don't
Yeah.
be reluctant to learn about how AI can help. And what tools you use will probably change. Every 3 months, you may find something new has come out.
or
It's that
or
fast.
faster than that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But at least
exactly.
you're
Yeah.
learning how to work with it, and then you can see what's good,
100%.
bad, and different and indifferent. So, yeah, I hope I answered your question there.
No, you did. You
Okay.
absolutely. I mean, I think really the net is it is an amazing opportunity. I think manufacturers, logistics companies, what have you,
Mhm.
like, and it kind of goes back to part of the premise of the book, right? Maybe a step number one would be if you've got a brownfield site and you have legacy equipment. Step number one is getting them. Jeff Bezos was saying, I want an open API. I want to be able to have access to that data. Making sure that equipment, that hardware, has the ability to be able to extract data from it. Because once you have that, I think there's a lot of tools that are coming out now that are getting into the user's hands that you can, I got a problem, I want to solve something, I can quickly deploy that and, figure out that answer. And then that may lead to a new process, or now I need to bring in an integrator to go do this other thing, or, what have you. And I do think that that's going to spin off a whole tremendous amount of other jobs and other opportunities. And it will take away, obviously, a lot of that mundane, you know, copying and pasting from a cell sheet to go from here to here. The manual, the example where you're, looking at the manual receipt of the, I could dump that in and have it quickly do it, an analysis. But now I know that, oh, we want to double down on the promotion. So I need to go, we need 4 more end caps that have that promotions, which means, Johnny, I need somebody to go, like, a robot's not going to go do that. AI is not going to go do that. It can assist you in making it faster, but the physically doing that, the rah and putting that stuff up, it's going to take a human. So, anyways, I think it's an exciting and interesting time.
It can be a game changer. One of the chapters in the book talks about the glass factory, or the case being the glass kitchen of Domino's restaurants, when they made the decision 10 years plus
Yeah.
ago that they were going to make everything accessible to the user, the customer,
Yeah.
with their app. And it shows you that your order has been placed, and now it's in the oven, and now it's left the facility, et cetera. And now we're getting used to having all that kind of data now. But there
Yeah.
was a long-term rivalry. Pizza Hut and Domino's were neck and neck, and Domino's pulled way ahead with that. Someone told me recently that there was not really a great connection, and that the data was somewhat questionable about whether it was really telling you about your order in real
That's what I
time.
heard.
And I thought about that and thought, you know what? It doesn't matter.
Does it matter that that now my pizza's going into the oven right now versus it's all about that predictability. But I did read an article
Yeah.
about that specifically, saying that it was actually BS. Like, it wasn't, we didn't have sensors and all those things. Somebody was going in and creating the update or whatever. But I think the point of the matter is, like, it was filling that need, and, like, it was showing us level of sophistication. It was showing, it was visualizing a process that, you're like, oh wow, this is where it's going, and this is how when I can expect when something might, be done. I do think that part was actually accurate. Like, hey, it's ready, or it's close to being ready now. But the whole, like, we're baking it now, we've put on 3 pepperonis. Like,
That's a
we're going
granularity.
like,
And someone can
you
interactively
know,
go, no, I want more.
actually, could you put this a little bit more on the left side? Perfect. Thank
Well,
you. That's where a vision system could come in.
exactly.
And
Well,
then you
yeah,
could,
there comes a point of diminishing returns perhaps there, but you see the power of it. And my point of bringing that all up is to say, when you are in the digital world, which we need to be in, we're here. This is the marketplace, people. Trains used to get robbed because that's where the money was, and banks before that
yeah.
because that's where the money was. Now the money, whether you're doing good or evil, is going to be online. It's in this cyber marketplace, and all the predictions of the late 90s, early 2000s about what people were going to do online, we're doing that online. And we're doing more than that
Mhm.
online. You know, we're
Yeah.
telephone systems are now all over the internet. They used to have their own wires
Yeah.
back in the day, and they had a separate,
Mhm.
very real copper connection or fiber optic connection. Now it's all over the internet. Things have changed, and they're going to continue to change. And this is the place where we will see the winners and losers. This is where you will
Absolutely.
differentiate yourself or you won't. And companies like Walmart and Amazon and Mercado Libre and all these other big companies are in a race to be the best, and particularly in this space. And that's why I've hooked my little red wagon to a super hyperscaler account called Amazon, because whatever they do is going to be cutting edge, and they're doing it in a with a methodology I am really impressed by, and I'm finding that so useful and so helpful. And they're a forerunner. You know, these companies I've mentioned are forerunners in their
Yeah.
industries.
Yeah.
Seeing what they do is really a foreshadowing of what everyone's going to have to do to stay competitive. And so I encourage us all, particularly in well, whether in logistics, manufacturing, whatever realm you're in, you can differentiate yourself by learning about these tools, what they are, and more importantly, what they can't do well and what the limits are, which will continue to change. Hopefully, the limitations reduce.
Mhm.
But I'm a fan, you guys. I'm not one of these naysayers or a Luddite saying we need to go back to cars that don't even have computers in them. Not to say I wouldn't like a, 1972 Grand Prix with a 400 large block in it, but I am looking for
Oh,
the
100%.
future, and we can make the future a great place with very good information, a visibility we've never had before, so that we can be more strategic in our lives. As companies, as individuals, we can accomplish the things we need, get back time, because time's something that you can't get back. In a day, you
Right.
can get a windfall and money can change, but time doesn't. And I think that
You'll never get that back.
never get that back. So let's make the best of it with these tools. Be efficient, but be smart.
100%. I love it. So basically what I'm hearing is innovate or die. That's
Yeah, I
essentially.
mean, yeah, if you want to put a fine point on it, yeah, I suppose so. Innovate or die. That's always been true, though. It's been true for hundreds of years. Innovate or die. You've,
100%.
you've
Yeah.
got to be good at this. If
Yeah.
you're the farmer and you're trying to make things work, great engineering has occurred in fields for hundreds or thousands of years when we had to figure out
Yeah.
something broke and we have to fix it, or we have to do something better. And we're just still doing the same thing, but in a new realm in cyber world.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully, listen, our audience are here. They're listening because they are innovating and they want to
Sure.
learn what those new things are and what's going
Mm.
on. And so, great way to be able to do is go check out Craig's book, Super Connected, The Future of the Industrial Nervous System, available on Amazon. We'll put links in the episode and on social. And I know you're very active on LinkedIn, so we can put links there so people can connect with you if they want to have any questions. Is there another place that would be better
No,
or
LinkedIn
that you would
is the
want to
best
put for
place.
your.
That's the real hub, and that's where we have conversations. And I'm not on this talking with you, Danny, because I'm trying to plug a book or something. You don't make money on LinkedIn,
Well,
by the way,
I'm trying to plug
but
your
I'm
book,
glad you're
so
plugging it. But I want it to be a platform for us to have these conversations, and maybe someone would want to talk about this just because I took the time to put something together and put my thoughts on paper, and I was doing it out of need. I wanted to know what my real value prop is into these industries, and that's what it was. But I really just want to meet interesting people. That's my thing. Have a great time with some really interesting people and learn about how they were successful, and the struggles they had is even a better conversation. That's what I like to do. So yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. Let's talk business. Let's talk leadership. Let's talk personal development. Whatever. Just love to make new connections.
awesome. Well, love it. Well, Craig, thank you so much for coming on the Industry Next podcast. I know we could have gone on probably another 2 or 3 hours, but this is unfortunately not a Joe Rogan style podcast yet. Maybe we'll turn into that.
We could hope.
But as always, loved having you on. You have some awesome insights. And I would just encourage you, if you're listening or watching, go connect with Craig, ask him, those deep questions, those questions you don't want to ask others, or maybe you're nervous about. Check out his book And if nothing else, he's a great conversationalist, as you have, if you're still listening, you know that. So
Well, we'll see. All right. Well, it's been great having this conversation, Danny. I really appreciate your leadership and your organization that's getting the truth out there. And someone told me long ago that good ideas are super valuable, but being able to articulate good ideas is even more valuable. And I think that's what you do.
Well, thank you. Very humbled to hear that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We're trying. That wraps up today's episode on Industry Next. Thank you so much for watching or listening. Listen, if you liked what you heard or what you saw, make sure you subscribe, follow Craig. You can come follow me, follow our content that we have on IndustrialSage. This is just the beginning of many, many more episodes like this. Leave some feedback. If you've got any comments or questions, I want to hear more of this, less of that. Would love to hear it. Bye-bye for now, and we'll be back next episode on Industry Next.